Dan sat alone in his car, gripping the steering wheel tightly as he stared out into the darkness. The rain hammered against the windshield, making it difficult to see anything beyond the blurred outlines of streetlights. It was past midnight, and he was on his way home from a late-night shift at work. As he drove through the desolate countryside, a feeling of unease crept over Dan. The road seemed never-ending, surrounded by dense forests on either side. The sound of the rain and the occasional thunderclap filled the silence, amplifying his growing sense of isolation. Suddenly, the engine sputtered, and the car came to a halt. Dan cursed under his breath and desperately tried to restart it, but to no avail. He was stranded in the middle of nowhere in the dead of the night. With no other option, Dan decided to brave the rain and seek help. He grabbed his jacket, stepped out into the pouring rain, and began walking along the desolate road. Each step sent shivers down his spine as the shadows of the trees seemed to dance and whisper in the darkness. After what felt like an eternity, he spotted a faint glow in the distance. It was a small roadside diner, its neon sign flickering through the rain-soaked air. Relieved, Dan quickened his pace and entered the warm, dimly lit establishment. Inside, the diner was virtually empty, save for a few patrons scattered at different tables. A middle-aged waitress with tired eyes greeted him and motioned for him to take a seat at the counter. Dan ordered a cup of coffee and explained his situation to the waitress. She listened attentively, her eyes darting around the room as if searching for something. After a brief pause, she finally spoke, her voice hushed and filled with concern. "You shouldn't be out on these roads at night, especially during a storm like this. There have been rumors, you know. People disappearing, strange occurrences," she whispered, glancing nervously at the other customers. Dan's curiosity was piqued, and he leaned in closer, urging her to continue. The waitress hesitated for a moment before speaking again. "They say there's someone out there, a dangerous individual who preys on those who dare to drive alone at night. Nobody knows for sure, but those who have encountered him, they never come back." A chill ran down Dan's spine as he absorbed her words. The stories seemed far-fetched, but he couldn't shake off the feeling that there was something unsettling about this place, about the road he had been traveling on. As the rain continued to pour outside, Dan pondered his options. Should he wait out the storm in the relative safety of the diner, or should he risk venturing back into the night, hoping to find a way to fix his car? Before he could make a decision, a loud crash echoed from outside. Dan and the other patrons turned towards the sound, their eyes widening in terror. Dan's heart raced as he exchanged fearful glances with the other patrons in the diner. The crash had come from the direction of the road, where his car had been left stranded. Panic gripped his chest, and he knew he had to investigate. With the waitress's warning still fresh in his mind, Dan mustered his courage and made his way towards the entrance. The rain had intensified, turning into a torrential downpour that obscured his vision. He pushed open the door and stepped out into the tempestuous night. The wind howled, lashing at his face as he cautiously approached the area where his car was parked. What he saw made his blood run cold. His car was mangled, twisted metal, the windshield shattered, and the windows shattered. It looked as though it had been in a horrific accident, but there were no other vehicles in sight. The rain pelted against the wreckage, creating an eerie symphony of destruction. Dan's mind raced, trying to make sense of what had happened. Who could have caused such devastation? And more importantly, were they still lurking nearby? A rustling sound from the surrounding forest broke his train of thought. Dan's heart pounded in his chest as he strained his eyes to see through the darkness. A figure emerged from the shadows, slowly approaching him. It was a man, tall and menacing, his eyes filled with malice. He smirked, revealing a set of yellowed teeth as he stepped closer to Dan. "You should have stayed in your car, boy," the man sneered, his voice dripping with malevolence. "Now, you're all alone out here with me." Dan's breath caught in his throat as he realized the danger he was in. The stories of the dangerous individual who preyed on lone drivers at night had turned out to be true, and he had walked right into his clutches. A desperate fight for survival ensued as Dan dodged the man's attacks, struggling to defend himself. The rain soaked through his clothes, making it difficult to maintain his balance. Fear and adrenaline fueled his movements as he fought for his life. But the man proved to be relentless, overpowering Dan with his sheer strength and viciousness. Blow after blow landed on Dan's body, weakening him with each strike. The world around him blurred as pain consumed his senses. Just when he thought all hope was lost, a piercing siren cut through the night. Flashing lights illuminated the area, and the assailant froze, his face contorted in anger and frustration. It was a police car responding to the crash and the reports of a dangerous individual on the loose. The officers quickly apprehended the man, ending his reign of terror. They called for medical assistance for Dan, who was battered but still alive. In the aftermath, as Dan lay in a hospital bed recovering from his injuries, he couldn't shake off the feeling of gratitude for the timely intervention of the police. He had narrowly escaped a grim fate at the hands of a deranged predator. From that day forward, Dan vowed never to underestimate the dangers of the night. He would always remain vigilant, aware of the lurking threats that could hide in the darkness. The harrowing experience would forever serve as a reminder of the fragility of life and the importance of staying safe. Charlie was peacefully driving his car along a dark and desolate road, illuminated only by the faint glow of his headlights. The night air was cool and silent, with an eerie sense of solitude enveloping the surroundings. As he continued down the empty stretch of highway, his mind began to wander. Thoughts of work, relationships, and the mundane routines of life clouded his consciousness. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught his attention on the side of the road. Curiosity piqued, Charlie slowed down and steered his car closer to the figure standing there. It was a woman, her face hidden beneath the shadows of a wide-brimmed hat. A sense of unease washed over him, but he couldn't resist the urge to find out what she wanted. Rolling down his window, Charlie cautiously called out, "Excuse me, ma'am. Is there something wrong? Can I help you?" The woman turned her head slowly, revealing only a glimpse of her pale, ghostly features. Her voice, barely above a whisper, carried an air of foreboding as she spoke. "You mustn't go any further, Charlie. If you do, you will meet with a terrible accident." Charlie's heart skipped a beat. How did this stranger know his name? He felt a shiver run down his spine, but he brushed it off as an elaborate prank. "Sorry, ma'am, but I have to be on my way," he replied, attempting to hide his growing unease. The woman's eyes seemed to glimmer with an otherworldly knowledge. "Please, Charlie, I implore you to reconsider. Trust me when I say that your life is in danger." Though unsettled, Charlie couldn't bring himself to believe her words. He had always been a skeptic, dismissing anything supernatural or premonitory as mere coincidence or superstition. He nodded politely, offering a weak smile, and pulled away from the woman, continuing his journey into the night. As he drove, the encounter with the mysterious woman replayed in his mind. An unsettling feeling crept over him, intensifying with every passing mile. Doubt gnawed at his thoughts, prompting him to question his decision. In a moment of wavering resolve, Charlie finally decided to heed the woman's warning. He abruptly applied the brakes, bringing his car to a screeching halt on the desolate road. Just as he did, a deafening crash shattered the silence. Charlie's eyes widened in horror as he looked through his rearview mirror. A speeding car, traveling too fast to stop in time, careened into the path of an oncoming truck. The collision was devastating, engulfing the night in a haze of twisted metal and shattered glass. The sound of crunching metal and screeching brakes reverberated in Charlie's ears. Trembling and filled with a mix of gratitude and fear, Charlie realized the enormity of the situation. He had narrowly escaped a tragic fate, thanks to the enigmatic warning from the mysterious woman. Charlie sat in his car, his hands gripping the steering wheel tightly as he tried to process the horrifying scene before him. The crash had left a trail of destruction, and emergency sirens began to wail in the distance. The gravity of the situation weighed heavily upon him, and a profound sense of guilt washed over him. He stepped out of his car, his legs feeling weak and unsteady beneath him. As he approached the wreckage, he couldn't help but wonder about the woman who had warned him. Who was she, and how did she know what was about to happen? The flashing lights of the emergency vehicles illuminated the area, casting an eerie glow on the twisted metal. Charlie approached one of the paramedics on the scene, his voice quivering as he spoke. "Excuse me, do you know if anyone survived?" he asked, his voice barely audible. The paramedic sighed, his face etched with exhaustion and sadness. "I'm afraid not. It's a tragic accident, and it seems like there were no survivors." Charlie's heart sank. The weight of the woman's warning now bore down upon him. She had tried to save him, but in doing so, she had sacrificed herself and the others in the process. The guilt consumed him, making him question his own choices. Over the following days, Charlie couldn't shake off the feeling that he was being watched. Every shadow seemed to hold a hidden presence, and a chill ran down his spine whenever he was alone. Sleep eluded him as nightmares haunted his nights, replaying the accident and the face of the woman in his dreams. Determined to find answers, Charlie embarked on a quest to uncover the truth behind the mysterious woman's warning. He delved into local archives, searching for any information that could lead him to her identity. After days of tireless investigation, Charlie discovered a tragic tale of a woman who had lost her life on that very stretch of road years ago. Her name was Sarah Evans, a young woman who had been involved in a fatal car accident. The details were eerily similar to what he had witnessed. Driven by a mix of curiosity and guilt, Charlie sought out Sarah's family. He hoped that they could shed some light on the inexplicable connection he felt towards her. With trepidation, he knocked on their door, uncertain of what he might discover. To his surprise, the door swung open to reveal an elderly couple. Their eyes were filled with sorrow, reflecting the pain of a loss that had never healed. Charlie introduced himself and shared his story, recounting the encounter with Sarah on the night of the accident. The couple listened intently, tears streaming down their faces. They explained that Sarah had possessed an extraordinary gift, a premonition of impending accidents that had saved countless lives. However, in her own tragic twist of fate, she had been unable to save herself that night. The couple thanked Charlie for sharing his experience, finding solace in the fact that Sarah's warning had indeed saved someone. Charlie, though burdened by the weight of the knowledge, felt a sense of closure. He had been given a second chance at life, and he vowed to honor Sarah's memory by living each day to its fullest. Months passed, and Charlie's life slowly regained a sense of normalcy. However, the memory of Sarah and the night drive never left him. He became an advocate for safe driving, sharing his story to raise awareness and prevent future accidents. In the quiet moments, as he gazed at the stars twinkling in the night sky, Charlie couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude. He had been given a chance to change his fate, and he vowed to make every moment count. Little did he know that the spirit of Sarah, forever bound to that fateful road, watched over him with a sense of bittersweet contentment. Her selfless act had not been in vain, and her presence lingered, a guardian angel guiding those who dared to traverse the treacherous night drive. Kenny sat alone in his dimly lit apartment, staring at his computer screen. It was past midnight, and he couldn't sleep. Restlessness consumed him as he scrolled through countless news articles, searching for something to pique his interest. His eyes were heavy, but his mind refused to shut down. Suddenly, a headline caught his attention. Mysterious disappearances on Midnight Ride Route. Kenny's curiosity was instantly piqued. The article described a series of unexplained vanishings that had occurred over the years along a particular stretch of road known as the Midnight Ride Route. Legends and rumors had swirled around the area, captivating the imaginations of locals. Intrigued, Kenny dug deeper, researching the history of the infamous route. The Midnight Ride Route was a winding road that passed through dense forests and isolated villages. It was said to have a haunting aura, and many believed it was cursed. Stories of eerie encounters and unexplained phenomena had circulated for generations. Unable to resist the allure, Kenny made up his mind to experience the midnight ride for himself. He packed his bags with essentials and set out on his journey the following evening. As he drove along the dark road, the wind whispered through the trees, creating an atmosphere of unease. The moon shone brightly, casting long shadows on the pavement. Kenny's excitement mixed with a sense of trepidation as he ventured deeper into the heart of the Midnight Ride Route. The stories he had read played in his mind, heightening his senses. Every creak of the branches and rustle of leaves seemed amplified, and he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. After what felt like an eternity, Kenny noticed a small gas station up ahead. He pulled over to refuel and gather his thoughts. As he stepped out of the car, a chilling breeze sent shivers down his spine. The gas station attendant, an elderly man with a weathered face, regarded Kenny with a wary expression. "Be careful out there," the old man warned, his voice filled with caution. "This road holds more secrets than you can fathom." Kenny nodded, appreciating the man's concern but determined to continue his journey. He thanked the attendant and hopped back into his car, the engine roaring to life. The road beckoned, and he pressed onward. Hours passed, and Kenny began to feel the weight of exhaustion settling upon him. The events of the evening had taken their toll, and his eyes grew heavy. As he fought to stay awake, a silhouette appeared in his peripheral vision. He blinked, thinking it was a figment of his imagination, but the figure remained. Intrigued and slightly unnerved, Kenny slowed down and rolled down his window. The figure emerged from the shadows, revealing the disheveled man with wild eyes. "Help me," the stranger pleaded, his voice trembling. "I've been wandering these woods for hours. I'm lost." Kenny's heart pounded in his chest. The situation seemed eerie and dangerous, but something about the man's desperation compelled him to offer assistance. He unlocked the car doors, and the stranger climbed in, his presence casting an unsettling aura inside the vehicle. "Thank you," the man whispered, his voice filled with relief. "You have no idea what this means to me." As they drove on, Kenny couldn't shake the feeling that he had made a grave mistake. The stranger's presence seemed to darken the atmosphere, and a foreboding silence settled between them. Deep down, Kenny knew he had entered a web of intrigue and mystery, but it was too late to turn back now. Kenny's mind raced with questions as he continued down the Midnight Ride Route with the mysterious stranger beside him. The man's presence was unsettling, and Kenny couldn't help but wonder if he had made a dangerous decision. Still, he pushed aside his apprehension and focused on the task at hand, helping the lost soul find his way. The stranger provided vague directions, guiding Kenny deeper into the heart of the forest. The road grew narrower and more desolate, surrounded by towering trees that seemed to whisper ancient secrets. Unease settled in Kenny's gut, but he pressed on, determined to see the journey through. After what felt like an eternity, the stranger abruptly pointed ahead. "Stop here," he said in a low, urgent voice. Confused, Kenny pulled over to the side of the road. The area was pitch black, illuminated only by the glow of his headlights. The stranger opened the car door and stepped out, his gaze fixed on a seemingly random spot in the woods. "Thank you for your kindness," the stranger said, his voice laced with an eerie calmness. "But now, I must leave." Before Kenny could respond, The stranger vanished into the darkness, leaving him alone with his thoughts. Uncertainty gnawed at Kenny's mind as he contemplated what had just transpired. Was it all an elaborate ruse, or had he stumbled upon something far more sinister? Resolving to uncover the truth, Kenny got out of the car and cautiously approached the spot where the stranger had disappeared. As he ventured deeper into the woods, the silence grew deafening, broken only by the rustling of leaves under his feet. The air felt heavy with anticipation, and an unexplainable fear gripped his heart. Suddenly, Kenny stumbled upon an old, dilapidated cabin hidden among the trees. It stood like a relic of the past, shrouded in mystery and decay. A sense of foreboding washed over him, but he couldn't resist the pull of curiosity. Kenny pushed open the creaky door and stepped inside. The interior was dimly lit, illuminated by a flickering oil lamp. Dust particles danced in the air, giving the room an ethereal quality. As Kenny explored the cabin, he discovered faded photographs, newspaper clippings, and journals that hinted at a dark history tied to the midnight ride route. The pieces began to fall into place. The disappearances, the legends, and the eerie atmosphere. It was all connected. Kenny realized that the midnight ride route held a secret, one that had been concealed for decades. With each revelation, fear and fascination intertwined within Kenny's soul. The weight of the unknown pressed upon him, urging him to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. Determined, he delved deeper into the cabin's secrets, piecing together the stories of those who had vanished along the midnight ride route. Days turned into weeks as Kenny tirelessly sought answers. His research led him to the local archives, where he uncovered forgotten police reports and witness testimonies. The truth emerged, shedding light on a dark chapter in the region's history. The midnight ride route had been a hunting ground for a notorious serial killer who had targeted unsuspecting travelers during the late hours of the night. The disappearances had remained unsolved, their victims lost to the annals of time. The legends and rumors had served as a veil, concealing the true nature of the horrors that had unfolded along the desolate road. As Kenny pieced together the final fragments of the puzzle, he realized that his pursuit of truth had put him in grave danger. He had unwittingly awakened forces that sought to silence those who dared to uncover their secrets. One moonlit night, as Kenny sat in his apartment, contemplating his findings, a knock echoed at his door. His heart raced as he approached cautiously. He peered through the peephole, but there was no one in sight. A chill ran down his spine, and a sense of impending doom settled upon him. Suddenly, the lights flickered and went out, plunging the apartment into darkness. Kenny's heart pounded in his chest as he fumbled for his phone, his only source of light. As he illuminated the room, a figure emerged from the shadows. The same stranger he had encountered on the midnight ride. "You've uncovered too much," the stranger whispered, his voice dripping with menace. "You should have left the secrets buried." Fear gripped Kenny's soul, but he refused to succumb to intimidation. He had come too far to turn back now. "I won't be silenced," Kenny declared, his voice trembling but resolute. "The truth deserves to be known." The stranger's face contorted into a sinister grin. "Very well," he hissed. "But remember, curiosity comes with a price." With those ominous words, the stranger lunged at Kenny, their bodies colliding in a violent struggle. Kenny fought with every ounce of strength he possessed, refusing to let the darkness consume him. The room became a battlefield, with furniture crashing and shattered glass littering the floor. Kenny's adrenaline surged as he managed to break free from the stranger's grip, desperately seeking an opportunity to escape. In a moment of clarity, Kenny remembered a small pocket knife he kept in his drawer. He dashed towards it, clutching the weapon tightly in his hand. With a surge of determination, he turned to face his assailant. As the stranger lunged at him once again, Kenny fought back with a newfound resolve. The blade sliced through the air, finding its mark. The stranger recoiled in pain, his grip loosening. and Kenny seized the opportunity to flee. Breathing heavily, Kenny stumbled out of his apartment and into the night, leaving behind the horrors that had consumed his life. The midnight ride had transformed from a mere curiosity into a battle for survival, but Kenny emerged stronger with the truth as his shield. Months passed, and Kenny dedicated himself to sharing his findings with the world. He published a book, shedding light on the secrets of the midnight ride route and honoring the memories of the victims who had been forgotten. The revelation sparked a renewed interest in the case, prompting authorities to reopen the investigations. Slowly but surely, justice was served as the true extent of the serial killer's crimes came to light. The midnight ride route, once shrouded in darkness, became a symbol of resilience and the triumph of truth over malevolence. And Kenny, forever changed by his harrowing experience, became an advocate for the voiceless, ensuring that the victims of the midnight ride would never be forgotten. Their stories lived on, etched into the annals of history, serving as a reminder of the human capacity for both darkness and unwavering courage in the face of it. Johnny had always been fascinated by the mysterious and unknown. He found solace in the darkness that enveloped the world during the midnight hours. It was as if the night held secrets that the daylight could never reveal. One particular night, Johnny decided to embark on a thrilling adventure, a midnight ride that would take him through uncharted territory, both physically and mentally. The moon hung high in the night sky as Johnny prepared for his journey. He fueled up his motorcycle, a sleek black machine that roared to life as he mounted it. The cold wind bit at his skin, but he paid it no mind. Johnny was focused on the thrill that awaited him in the darkness. His route was a winding road that cut through dense forests and small towns. The road seemed to stretch endlessly before him, disappearing into the shadows of the night. As he rode deeper into the unknown, an unsettling feeling crept over him. It was as if the night itself was watching, waiting for something to happen. As he approached a small town, Johnny noticed a flickering light in the distance. It seemed to beckon him, drawing him closer with an invisible force. Curiosity consumed him, and he decided to investigate. He veered off the main road and followed the path towards the light. The light led him to an old, abandoned mansion on the outskirts of town. Its crumbling walls and broken windows spoke of a forgotten era. The front door creaked open as Johnny cautiously stepped inside. The air was heavy with the scent of decay, and a shiver ran down his spine. Exploring the mansion, Johnny stumbled upon a dusty library. The shelves were lined with decaying books, their spines barely holding together. Amongst them, he discovered a worn leather-bound journal. Intrigued, he opened it and began reading the faded inked words. The journal belonged to a previous owner of the mansion, a man named Samuel. Samuel had been plagued by nightmares and visions that tormented him every night. Desperate for answers, he sought out forbidden knowledge, delving into the dark arts and rituals to free himself from his suffering. The more Johnny read, the more he felt a strange connection to Samuel's plight. The stories became more chilling as they detailed Samuel's descent into madness. It was as if the mansion itself was cursed, feeding off the fears and desires of those who entered. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew through the open windows, extinguishing the candles in the room. Johnny's heart raced as he heard a distant whisper echoing through the halls of the mansion. Fear gnawed at his insides, but he couldn't tear himself away from the journal. Just as he was about to turn the page, a blood-curdling scream pierced the silence. Johnny's pulse quickened, and he knew he had to find the source of the sound. He closed the journal, slipping it into his backpack, and made his way towards the chilling cries. Following the sound of the scream, Johnny navigated the dark corridors of the mansion. The wooden floorboards groaned under his weight, adding an eerie soundtrack to his journey. The whispers grew louder, filling his ears with a cacophony of voices that seemed to come from all directions. As he turned a corner, Johnny froze in his tracks. Before him stood a ghastly sight, a ghostly figure, pale and translucent, staring at him with hollow eyes. It was Samuel, the tormented soul whose journal Johnny had discovered. Samuel's spectral form trembled with anguish, and his voice quivered as he spoke. "Leave this place," Samuel whispered, his voice echoing in the desolate hallway. "It's too late for me, but you still have a chance to escape." Johnny's heart pounded in his chest, torn between fascination and terror. He had always sought the unknown, but now it stood before him in the form of a tortured spirit. He managed to find his voice, trembling as he asked, "What happened here, Samuel? What curse has befallen this mansion?" Samuel's eyes filled with sorrow as he recounted his tale. He had delved too deep into the darkness, seeking forbidden knowledge to silence his nightmares. But in doing so, he had unleashed a malevolent force that consumed him and trapped his soul within the confines of the mansion. "The curse feeds on fear," Samuel explained, his voice filled with remorse. "It preys on those who venture here, tormenting them with their deepest fears and desires. You must escape, Johnny, before it consumes you too." Johnny's mind raced, grappling with the reality of the situation. He had come seeking adventure, but now he was faced with a chilling choice. He could abandon his curiosity and flee, or he could confront the darkness head-on and try to break the curse that held Samuel captive. Summoning his courage, Johnny made his decision. He would face the curse and fight to free Samuel's soul. He knew it wouldn't be easy, but he couldn't turn his back on someone in need. Armed with the knowledge from Samuel's journal, Johnny embarked on a quest to break the curse. He gathered the necessary artifacts, deciphered cryptic symbols, and performed the rituals needed to weaken the malevolent force that plagued the mansion. With each step, the darkness fought back, manifesting as terrifying illusions and twisted nightmares. But Johnny pushed forward, determined to save Samuel and himself from the clutches of the curse. Finally, after nights of relentless battles with the supernatural, Johnny stood before the cursed room where it all began. He took a deep breath, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and hope, and stepped inside. The room was filled with an otherworldly aura, crackling with malevolence. Samuel's tormented spirit floated in the center, surrounded by a swirling vortex of darkness. Johnny knew this was the final test, the ultimate battle against the curse. Summoning every ounce of courage within him, Johnny confronted the darkness head-on. He recited ancient incantations, brandishing the artifacts he had gathered, and channeled his inner strength to break the curse that held Samuel captive. In a blinding flash of light, the curse shattered, and the mansion trembled as the darkness was banished. Samuel's ghostly figure began to fade, his face filled with gratitude. "Thank you, Johnny," Samuel whispered, his voice filled with peace. "You have saved me from an eternity of torment. May you find the answers you seek in the light." With those final words, Samuel's spirit dissipated, leaving behind a sense of closure and triumph. Johnny stood in the now silent room, his heart filled with a mix of relief and awe. He had faced the unknown, confronted his fears, and emerged victorious. As the dawn broke, Johnny made his way out of the mansion, carrying with him the journal that had led him to this fateful encounter. He knew that his life had been forever changed by this midnight ride, by the harrowing experience that had tested his limits. From that day forward, Johnny pursued his passion for the unknown with newfound caution and respect. He delved into the mysteries of the world, but always with a sense of responsibility and awareness of the consequences that could arise. The tale of his midnight ride and the cursed mansion spread through the town, becoming a cautionary tale for those who dared to seek out the shadows. Johnny became a symbol of courage and resilience, a reminder that even in the face of darkness, there was hope and the possibility of redemption. And so, Johnny's journey continued, his thirst for knowledge guiding him on new adventures and discoveries. But he never forgot the lessons he had learned during that fateful night. The delicate balance between curiosity and danger, the power of facing one's fears, and the importance of helping others in their time of need. The midnight ride had marked a turning point in Johnny's life, a transformative experience that had shaped him into a wiser and more compassionate explorer of the unknown. And as the years passed, the abandoned mansion stood as a silent testament to the events that had unfolded within its walls. It remained a haunting reminder of the darkness that dwells within us all, and the choices we must make to conquer it.